Hi, this is Doug Ware at InstantQuick, and today in this lesson I'm going to take the bug database demonstration that I did in the previous demonstrations and I'm going to extend it to include a tabbed user interface on the home page. This tabbed user interface is going to display views of the active bugs that are on our site, and it's going to use jQuery, jQuery UI, and the IQApp Core Components ListView plugin for jQuery. Okay, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new version of the existing app. I'm going to call this version 0.0.03, and this is going to be based on the previously published version. Now, one of the nice things about this is I could have gone back to an even earlier version if I wanted to, and the reason I'm creating versions is so that if I do make a big mistake, I can always go back and recover my efforts. Okay, so let's go over to our source site, and we can see that it's got on the home page an active bugs and a resolved bugs list view. Now these views are different. In this demonstration, I'm not going to actually create new views for this. I'm going to use the same view twice. But to do this, I'm going to need to add a web part to the home page. So I'm going to go to the Site Assets library, and I'm going to sync it with my local desktop, and that's where I'm going to do my authoring. So I'm going to go ahead and click Sync and then click Sync Now. And then Show My Files. And I'm going to add two files to my local disk that are going to sync up to SharePoint. The first one is going to be an HTML file, and this file is going to be contained in a content editor web part on the home page. We'll call this homepage tabs.html. And yes, I do want to change the extension. And now I'm going to make a new one, a new file, and this one's also going to be called homepage tabs, but this one's going to be homepage tabs.js. Okay, so let's edit this with Visual Studio 2013. I could use any editor would be fine. I could use Notepad. In this case, I'm just going to use Visual Studio because it's my preferred tool for building web pages. So we'll go ahead and zoom in over here, and the first thing that I'm going to need to add to this page is an outer div that's going to contain everything else. When you're doing this kind of work, controlling when things display for the users is important. So my initial div is going to have style display none on it, and my JavaScript is going to show this when it's done initializing the tabs. The next thing I'm going to add is the actual tab container that jQuery is going to use. And inside of this container, I'm going to need a tab for each one of those views, my active bugs and my resolved bugs. So I'll add an unordered list, which has two items, my active bugs and my resolved bugs. And then I need an actual list view that is going to be contained by the ListView plugin or showed by the ListView plugin. So we're going to use the default view of this, which is listbugsmyitems.aspx. And like I said, I don't want to spend time actually defining the views, so I'm just going to use the same view twice in each one of the tabs, or once in each tab. Okay, so I need to add two new divs. One of these is going to have the ID of active and the other one's going to have the ID of resolved. And then inside of those we'll have an anchor for the view, and inside the anchor something to display before the tabs display. And then finally I'm going to add a style sheet to this to make it a little nicer. Normally I would keep my style sheet externally for my app, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll put it right in the HTML that's going to be displayed in the content editor web part. Okay, so let's save our work. And now I'm going to go back over to the home page of the site and edit it. I'll click Add a Web Part there at the top of the left zone, and then in categories I'll choose Media and Content, and then Content Editor, and click Add. Right now we're going to edit the web part to configure it. And this is in the Site Assets library, and it's called homepage tabs.html. And I'll test the link, and we see that it's trying to download a file, so that's good. Now I'm going to change the appearance. I'm going to give this a title so I know what it is. This is going to be tabs. And I'm going to change the Chrome to none so that we don't see anything but the contents of our HTML. I'll choose OK. And now I'll stop editing. And you can see that web part disappears because it doesn't have any content that's visible at the moment because the outer div had display none on the style. All right, now let's edit our JavaScript. Once again, we'll open this with Visual Studio. And it's telling me that the homepage tabs was modified, and that happened during the sync with OneDrive. So that's a good sign that we're actually syncing back up to SharePoint. All right, so I'm going to start by adding my traditional wrapper. And what this does is it allows me to safely use $sign to refer to jQuery. This is called an immediately invoked function expression. And then I'm going to add the rest of the boilerplate, and this is the equivalent of jQuery's document.ready. If you're not a jQuery user, then don't worry about trying to understand the details of this, but if you are, this is how all of my jQuery functions start. It just says wait till the page loads and refer to jQuery using the $sign variable. Okay, so jQuery UI requires, or rather to initialize tabs, you just call the tabs function, and it takes a JavaScript object as a variable that initializes it and defines some of the behavior inside of it. So we'll start with that. And if I just ran this code right now, it would create tabs based on the HTML. What I want to have happen is when the tab gets created is for it to run my ListView plugin. And that's what that if statement there at the bottom does. It says if the panel has an anchor in it, load the ListView. And then I'm going to have one that stores what the user does when they click on a tab that's active, and then one for activate, which does the same thing as create except loads the ListView when the user clicks on a tab. And then finally, after this is done running, I'm going to show the tab content. All right, so I've saved my work. Now I'm going to come back over to IQApp Studio, and I'm going to inject, or I'm going to create a resource mapping to inject that JavaScript file into the page, along with the ListView plugin itself. So I'm going to go to the Runtime Resources tool, and I'm going to add a new page and script style sheet mapping for default.aspx. And click Add. And now I will open that resource mapping, and I'm going to actually say what I want mapped when that page loads. So I'm going to click New Page Script or Style Sheet, and this is located in the SharePoint site. So I'll check the box and then use the type ahead. First, we're going to add the ListView plugin itself. So this is in IQApp Core scripts, and it's ListView plugin.min.js. And we need to add this to the app. Although actually I didn't need to do that, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and let it be there. It won't hurt anything. And now we're going to add in the site assets JavaScript file. And click Add. And add this one to the app. The reason I didn't need to add the previous one is because it's laid down by the dependency component. Now finally I'm going to go into the style sheets and add in the style sheet for the ListView plugin, which is once again under IQApp Core, except this time it's under styles instead of scripts, and it's called ListView plugin min.css. All right, this I also didn't need to add to the app, but I'll do it anyway just for the sake of doing it wrong twice. All right, so now if we look at our editor, we can see we have default.aspx, and I'm going to refresh this from the site because I added a web part to the page. So I need to include the current version of default.aspx in my app. And now I'm going to add in that HTML file that's actually loaded by the content editor web part. So this is under Site Assets, and it's homepage tabs.html, and we'll click Add. All right, so let's go over to Tools, and what we're going to do now is deploy this to the target site. So we'll click deploy to target site and then confirm we want to do it and watch as the magic happens. And it succeeded, so we'll close it. And now let's take a look at the target site and see what we got. All right, check it out. We have a tabbed UI with 2 list views in it. Very, very cool.